Hello and welcome to another classic Wow with Mao podcast. We've got a great show for you lined up today. Zul'Gurub has hit, and oh man, is there a lot going on regarding that. We're going to be taking a look at what's going on with the server transfer situation that's been ever evolving, and we'll be talking to Okwaho about the upcoming Festival of Peace on the Grobula server. But first, how you doing today, Myth?
I am doing great. It has been an awesome week. Tons of stuff to do. Awesome. No complaints at all.
Yeah, Zul'Gurub came out at just the right time, if you ask me. I think people were getting a little bit restless with the server situation. Obviously there's been a lot of queues on a lot of servers. Grobulus has seen the ever-growing queue itself, but Zul'Gurub has been a great relief to some of that anxiety, I've got to say, and it's given me a reason to get back out in the game and farming and getting some gold again. And maybe even better than any of that, we're now able to raid every third day, which is pretty cool for some pretty darn good rewards, honestly.
Oh yeah, the loot in there, for the most part, there's like something for everybody. We're really enjoying that. Starting to pass out different enchant items to people in the guild. We've already got one mage who's almost solo farmed Exalted. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what you're looking for from Zul'Gurub, whether it's just gear upgrades, you're looking for some enchants. Every single level of player is going to get some benefit out of this dungeon being out, provided that they, just want to do some raids. The cool thing about it too is if you're a super hardcore player, there's tons there for you there as well, between the enchants and the rep grinding and some of the greatest gold farms that you're going to find for quite some time in WoW.
Well, so one of the super benefits for me is I finally decided to hop on board the getting a character power level train, and I just got to 41 today. So once I get to 50 for Maraudon, apparently you can power level in ZG if you have a good group, and it's way more efficient than Strat or BRD.
Yeah, I've already heard a little bit from some of our mages about the Zul'Gurub rep and EXP grind that is now taking WoW by storm. And again, this is a great, efficient way to not only get some passive levels, but also get that rep. And depending on the deal you work out, maybe some coins and bijous, which are also in huge demand right now, although it's been a very interesting dance when it comes to those, because at first they dropped and they were a ton. The price absolutely plummeted from being flooded in the market, but there's still tons of buyers. So that, bijou and coin wave has kind of been going up and down ever since ZG dropped.
Yeah, and on top of the fact that the mobs can just drop Bloodvine, that's been a huge gold spot for a lot of the mages farming this. I think it spiked at like 120 gold a pop the first day. So mages who were, able to, who got early blood scythes, or even rogues with early blood scythes, were able to pick, 5 or 6 Bloodvine an hour. You're looking at almost 700 gold an hour. That's insane.
Yeah, I was working on getting that blood scythe on my warrior because that was where my herbalist was, but my mage did a lot of the grinding for the rep, and I was able to, figure out how to do all of these polls. But for the people that spent some time on the, the public test realm, or maybe they were private server, veterans, they definitely got ahead and took advantage of some absolutely juicy prices when it came to Bloodvine when it was in the most demand. The price of Bloodvine too was sky high for the actual gear itself, because we're now into this era of raid where casters can get some serious hit gear going on, and it doesn't just stop at Bloodvine, and it even extends to this what's now been kind of considered to be a bug. Is it working as intended? This enchant where you can enchant a BOE item and then trade it to somebody else with the enchant. People are getting 19 twinks with ZG enchants on it now.
So we tried to replicate that, and it wasn't working for us. We had someone buy a shoulder resistance enchant, and we couldn't replicate it. So I'm not actually sure what happened with that.
Yeah, I still think that we're in a phase where we're not 100% sure if this is even reliable, if this is something that on Monday Blizzard is going to be like, oh, no, guys, we're rolling this back. This is a weird gray area, and the thing that's made this area maybe grayer than some of the other things that have happened in this game is the fact that, to a lot of people's knowledge, this is how it existed all throughout Classic, and the change to this happened in the Burning Crusade. So now we're really not sure if this is just going to be the new lay of the land or something that we can expect to be changed here shortly.
So I don't think it's the way that you're describing it. If I remember correctly, because I did actually know a twink who had the Nax shoulder enchant from Saffron on an item. If I remember correctly, it only worked on completely unbound items. So, like, if you do a gray item that doesn't bind, like a Dirk or something, like, you know how you can, like, put a 30 spell power enchant on a Dirk and then pass it around to all your characters to have a good leveling weapon.
Right, and this is something that, we do with, like, spell power enchant, for example, is a really good usage of that. And you don't need to worry about, any sort of trading and anything with something like that. But obviously these ZG enchants are, they're a little bit different in nature, and some of them are downright powerful depending on what class you are.
Yeah, so the question, if it works that way, if it's just on gray unbound items, it's going to be OP for some early twinking, but it's not really going to be OP for most raiders, because again, we couldn't get it to work actual BOE I think it's only supposed to work on items that don't bind at all.
The only reason I get a little bit suspicious, or, curious about it, I guess I should say, is I saw one of the pictures of someone with a blue item with it. So this is kind of given into this, is this actually replicatable? Does this still happen? The reports have varied a lot, which is why I'm still kind of I'm not quite sure we've heard the last of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally possible. It is a weird, janky thing that does seem like it could work, but my gut tells me it might be a Photoshop situation.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye out on this. If it does remain the same, though, I would imagine that this would completely change the meta in the way that people would go about their enchants, right? It would kind of force PvPers to think about getting, say, the more stam tanky enchants, and PvEers would have some very clear cross-class enchants that they'd be looking for. People were even saying things like, warriors could get an extra Lionheart and squeeze a little bit of attack power, although that'd be a pretty high price to pay for, what maybe amounts to about 18 attack power.
I mean, you still do it. I mean, I think that would make, arguably... So, Lionheart's obviously one of the better items that's craftable in the whole game for warriors. But the other item that would also be obtainable, which comes out next patch, is Titanic leg plates. A lot of people are going to get those crafted who aren't already warlords and don't have the rank 12 pants. When those get crafted, before they ever equip them, if this is still a thing, there's going to be no reason to not get at least the rogue enchant on them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm looking at those rogue enchants now, just going like, man, how could I possibly get my hands on those? Those are exactly what I'm looking for. But until we get this, either down pat to where we can rely on it, or we get word that this is either not long for WoW Classic, or it's going to be the lay of the land. A lot is up in the air regarding the enchants, and I'm definitely interested, because if this is in fact a thing that's going to be part of the new meta of the game, and it was throughout Classic, then I'm in. I want to get my hands on some of those rogue enchants for sure.
Yeah, and it makes certain things like pretty different than normal, right? Like almost all warlocks right now are really looking to craft this Bloodvine gear, and it's going to last them probably into Nax with just normal enchants. If you can get the mage spell hit enchant, it will definitely be better than anything pre-Nax.
Well, it just gives you so many more options too with what you do with the rest of your gear, because getting to where you want to get to with hit has been so difficult for I mean, it hasn't even been possible for casters, honestly, to this point. And now that they're finally in this realm where they can kind of play with that, this is a huge boost to that. And honestly, it feels like everybody kind of should have a little bit of a choice, honestly. Like, it's strange that they go like, oh, well, warlocks can get this one, and they're going to get that one, and when in the end it would kind of just be this, well, this is kind of the way we all like to itemize. Let's give us a little bit of freedom, and I think that that's by and large what players would like to have out of this.
For sure. I mean, it's not the way that the game is designed, so it can't really just be something that like players choose to do, especially if they're interested in no changes in Classic. But I mean, we'll see if it actually just keeps working, or if Blizzard bans it or rolls back the enchants in some way.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm more thinking is going to happen, is we may end up with the inevitable rollback at some point. And if that does happen, it was fun while it lasted, but all good things must come to an end. So we'll see what happens, though. I'm kind of interested with this one, because this has kind of been one of the more interesting quirks that we've seen, and one that would definitely have raid implications. One of the other things that's having raid implications, although a little bit indirectly, has been the closing of transfers and character creation on Globulus. And what's really been interesting has been this progression of whether these are going to be layered servers, which servers are going to be ones that are just going to have their character creation suspended. And Grob has been one of the ones that's been stuck in the middle of that. What's going on, Myth?
I mean, first off, I don't know if it's legit just this like the whole COVID situation that's causing this. I suspect it is, but like server population is crazy everywhere. It's not just. I have friends that play on Herod, and their queue times have been insane lately. Like they make hours look great, which in comparison horrifies me, because I had a 90-minute queue the other day trying to log in.
Yeah, we had to suspend a raid actually a little bit, because several of our raiders were in queue over an hour before the queue hit, and lo and behold, no World of Warcraft for you yet, boys.
Yeah, the raid the night that ZG came out, we had to postpone by half an hour just to have 7 or 8 of our raiders be able to log in, and they tried logging in more like an hour before the raid.
Yeah, like in the case of some of them, they were even in the queue. They were going to make it on time even with the queue, and it was something as simple as just getting disconnected in the middle of the queue that could have major implications on your ability to actually get to play with your friends and the people that you know. It's caused a lot of problems too, because it's gotten back to this argument of, do players get too into playing a specific way, and they're kind of forcing themselves all onto the same servers until they fill up, rather than maybe evenly dispersing and kind of thinking like, hey, maybe we should be seeking out a smaller population situation rather than just bombarding the next server and the next server and always having to just play leapfrog to whatever server doesn't have a queue.
I mean, there's upsides and downsides to it, right? Like, if you're running a guild, you don't want to be on a server with an incredibly low population, because if you have a couple of people who retire from raiding, you suddenly have to fill their spots. It's pretty hard to do on, a tiny server.
Yeah, and with the way things are kind of playing out right now, you don't even really know if your server's identity is going to last, and that community that you built up that was maybe appreciative of a smaller community or something like that, maybe feel a little bit alienated by some of the, people coming in. This is a little bit of an issue on Grobulus, albeit a slightly different issue, because we get a lot of players that have heard that Grobulus is this great landing location, and they may not necessarily be players that would have otherwise chosen Grobulus as a server, or this may not necessarily be the right choice for them, and it kind of makes it where, like, if you want the RP PvP experience, but Grobulus is full, it's difficult for you, and it may just be taken up by people that just, were on a higher pop server that just wanted to be on the next highest pop server.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what we can do about this, because it isn't just the queue times that are getting to be a problem. On Grobulus this week, Black Lotuses have spiked to 190 gold. And I don't think they're going to go down.
No, there's really no indication that there's any hope of them going down, honestly, because the scarcity remains the same. We've been talking about this on the show for over a month. There's way more people that want to use Black Lotuses than there are Black Lotuses available. And even those that are stockpiling them, they're not really letting them out into the economy. So, that scarcity just is going to continue to exist, and it's going to just continue playing this game where we go, all right, how much you willing to pay for that Lotus?
Yeah, and I mean, now with the Mojo Madness being out, with there being another important reagent that uses a Black Lotus, they're just going to keep. I feel like they're just going to keep going up and down.
Yeah, the one benefit is you do get 3 shots at it per Lotus, but it still takes 2 Lotuses total to complete the entire cycle of the Edge of Madness. So it kind of, that's kind of a lot of Lotuses that are going to be now taken up because of that, and not because of flasks. And, I know a lot of us are kind of getting to that point with BWL where it's farm, and we're maybe thinking that flasking isn't going to be necessary, but that, there's still people that like to flask every raid no matter what.
Yeah, especially now that the ZG buff's out. People want to get better parses. It's available with this extra buff. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a rough place to be in. I don't know the solution either, because a lot of the people who did have these extra flasks, you're right when you say they're not letting them into the economy. They just sit on banks. People with 90 plus of them in the guild at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I would be one of those to blame as well. My Lotus stack that I held for really since the beginning of Classic, and it's just now started to deplete itself, has been there specifically to make sure I had a flask ready to raid. And unless they're either taken by farmers or they're taken by, raiders, those, Lotuses are few and fewer far between going into locations where they're going to alleviate the cost anytime soon. This has also been an issue for other servers that are small pop, because what it's also led is this behavior of larger server populations going in and maybe taking advantage of some of these lower resources for a period of time and then transferring these large groups of resources off the server. This is something that Grob probably doesn't feel too much overall, but if you're a destination like, say, an Earth Fury that was a relatively controlled population, and then you had an influx of people from other servers, particularly lower pop ones, that have flooded your economy with all kinds of items, it can have a major effect on your economy.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing that I'd honestly be worried about isn't that these guilds are bringing over these items to sell. I mean, if I were on a server where they were cheaper, I would just buy them and save them. I mean, I guess you could just I don't know. The economy is breaking way too quickly in Classic. Not that like WoW has really ever had like a great economy. Like the game isn't really designed around the like economic balance. But it I don't know. It seems to me like it's significantly worse because of how predictable the game is after this many years, right? Like people have known, oh, it's worth investing in this item. Oh, it's worth investing in this item. And since there aren't going to be a ton of changes to how things have worked, there's no real solution to this Black Lotus problem. Like the groups that are getting more layering, that's kind of a solution, and that's going to help their servers a little bit, but their populations are already having bigger problems than we are. So I don't know how much that's going to solve their problems.
Well, and
I'd
I
be
don't
curious.
even know that people really want layering as that solution, right? Like, layering isn't exactly what we're hoping for when it comes to the solution for Lotus, at least in my opinion. I would really hope that they would do something like just give us an appropriate level of spawns for the amount of people that are playing the game. To me, that seems like a much more palatable option than, just layering, which is going to effectively split up the community in a way that I would say most of us don't want. And what this kind of leads us into is a little bit like what happened with the World Dragons on the second day of the patch, right? The first day was interesting because people kind of took their guess on where things were going to spawn. There was a lot of waiting around. On the second day, when we were told that they were going to spawn at specific times, we got some amazing battles by having these big populations built up. These types of things don't happen with layering.
Yeah. I don't know. There's other problems to layering also. Like think about how frustrating it would be if you read on the website that Onyxia buff's going out in 15 minutes. You log in and you're not on the right layer for the Onyxia buff, so you miss it.
Yeah, there's lots of little things like that. And the bigger issue, too, again, with layering to me at the end of the day is we went to WoW Classic to get back to having this consistent flowing economy of players and not having a split up. We want to get back to this feeling like one cohesive world, not several different variations where we can kind of intersect and cross. And layering being that solution really wasn't what I was hoping for so much. To me, I would rather them maybe open up a couple of new servers to deal with this and maybe do some transfers specifically to these servers to maybe break up some of these higher pop servers, but maybe not affect the lower pop ones so much. I think that the issue that we really saw with this was server identities broken up, and a lot of people made their way to servers because they liked what they saw going on there, and having that identity broken up overnight is kind of frustrating, honestly.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. But it's really hard to know what the right direction is.
Yeah, WoW Classic being the game that it is, and being the experience kind of varying from person to person as much as it does, makes it more difficult to kind of pinpoint what the right way and what the best experience is for everybody. We're all going to disagree a little bit. Some people like those booming, full, packed servers, while other people want lower pop servers. Some people want to play on Alliance and Horde Havens, and these are all different styles of play, really, to the game. And there's, ultimately, at the end of the day, there's not a right or wrong answer to any of those things.
Well, I don't know if I agree. There might be a wrong answer, because what's happening right now feels like it's the wrong answer. I'm sure there have been people who have spent a long time playing on servers with a similar situation to, like, having a queue all the time. I don't want that to be the case. Like, a server community is important to me, but what's also important to me is not having to sit around for an hour, 45 minutes, 90 minutes every time I want to play this game.
I do feel that more red tape in the way to get people to playing with people that they want is going to be the quickest way to get everybody disinterested in playing WoW Classic, because you're like you said, it's frustrating to want to play with people that you know and not be able to. Let's be honest. It was my biggest source of frustration during PvP, when AV was the meta. Not being able to play with people that I know was the number one thing. I could have dealt with basically everything else, but having to go about this massive player online game solo didn't feel right. And not being able to play with your friends and, trying to be able to coordinate things in such a way is frustrating. It takes away from the experience, and it's going to potentially make people more interested in spending their time with other games during this time of lots of games being available and a lot of people playing games.
Yeah, I hope they can figure out a solution to this problem, because I definitely don't see the economy getting any better. With everything that I've read and seen interview-wise from like doctors and scientists, I really don't think the quarantine that we're currently a part of is going to end anytime soon. So we need to come up with a decent solution to this that is, maybe we do need to do some sort of mass server exodus and figure it out. There are quite a few servers that have half, if not less, of the population of Grobulus that could easily support a few guilds just transferring to them. And I feel like really the right way to do it would be to offer people who are willing to transfer just an incentive, right? Let them take over a little bit more than the maximum amount of gold, as long as they're transferring their characters, right? Offer them free character transfers from the whole server, and maybe slide them a little bit of game time. So these big guilds that have everybody has 4 alts that are max level, so they can do all these raid splits and funnel gear to people, or all these farming groups. Let them transfer their whole raid group at once, keep all of their wealth, get a little bit on the side for it, and still be on a solid server with a good population.
Yeah, that very well may be the case. I wonder if we don't need a couple extra servers at this point, though, because if we have so many people, we have servers worth of people waiting in queues right now. And I know the thought is going to be that once this disappears, we're going to shrink back down, and then there's going to be some servers that are maybe too small. That could certainly be an issue. With the overflow that we have going on right now, and I would probably say an expected overflow again when Encourage hits, I don't really see anything but, kind of a good idea, and maybe opening up some locations for some of this overflow to go at this point.
But look, if you look, there's a site, it's called ironforge.pro, and they have a bot that sweeps Warcraft logs of how many max level characters posted a log each week on each server, right? It's to try and test, not necessarily to tell you that server's exact population, but to give you an idea of how many max level characters are, they're rating on each server. A server like Lotheb has a very close balance, 53-46, and only 700 max level characters have posted logs in the last 2 weeks on that server. If you compare that to the top server, which is a similar percentage, Whitemane, 46-55. Whitemane has almost 12,000 players, almost 14 times the number of people. It just seems like a no-brainer to me to tell people it's this way or the highway and fix the problem, and instead of letting it get this bad.
Yeah, when you have something like 14 times more people rating on one server versus another, it really does feel like you could fit an extra server's worth of people in between that, and then just have 2 well-functioning servers rather than having that's the server I don't want to go to versus, this is the one that I do want to go to. Really curious, are those both PvP servers?
Yeah, Lotheb is a PvP server, as is Whitemane. I don't know if
Whitemane was actually...
time zone. I don't know if they're in the same time zone.
Yeah, Whitemane was actually one of the ones that originally I was thinking about rolling my character on, along with Grobulus and a couple of others. And to me, the biggest selling point away, from staying away from Whitemane was I knew that this was going to be a very big server, and I didn't really want anything to do with that huge, all these queues and everything like that. Whereas Grob, I felt, was going to be a very big server, and I was maybe a little bit worried about how it might be similar to Whitemane in that regard. The RP PvP side of it kind of guaranteed that it was going to be its own unique identity instead of just overcrowded.
I agree. I was the same way. But I mean, also, if you look at, like, the bottom 5, like, even if instead of just comparing the top to the bottom 5 servers all have less than 1,500 max level players parsing, and the top 5 servers are all 10,000 and above. So, like, really, even if they just split half of each of the top servers onto these lower pop servers, it would solve balance problems. Because, like, we're having a 45-minute to an hour queue, and we're the 10th most populated server according to this website.
Yeah, and we're right at that peak where they were, if you're getting an hour queue, you can expect layering, and we're like sitting right at that hour, some nights 90 minutes, and we're like, this is not looking good. Are we going to be in that list soon? And it looks like we were the last group to basically say, like, look, this is the maximum server capacity is where Grobulus is at.
Which probably means around. So again, this is only max level characters. Let's assume, and I don't know how much number wise this would be. But what if 20%? What if it's 20% more players aren't max level, but play on each realm? Because that's only like this isn't including alts, right? Like some of these might be duplicates if there's different characters with similar name, like if I run Molten Core on my warrior, and then on my rogue, and then on my warlock, that's three max level characters that this website thinks exist that all belong to one person. So it's probably safe to say that there's probably like a 20% variance to these numbers. That means that we're probably floating around 10,000 different accounts on Grobulus, and that's giving us this sort of queue. There's probably closer to 14,000 on Whitemane, and then as low as 1,000 on these other servers. So, really, it really just seems like we need to split the difference and like balance the whole system.
Yeah, and we're really at a place, even on Grobulus, and especially on Whitemane, on Herod, on Faralina, on some of these other servers that are just blowing up in terms of their server population. These are way bigger than vanilla servers were. We are way past what hashtag no changes would have allowed in terms of player population on those servers.
Yeah, weren't population. I feel like if there were like 2,000 of each faction on an actual vanilla server, it was full.
Yeah, I can assure you, my second server that I played on, I originally played on Tichondrius, and Tichondrius was relatively full on both sides. It was, pretty heavy PvP. It was definitely alliance dominated, don't get me wrong, from the start, but it was, there was good guilds on both sides. There was a little bit of give and take to it, it wasn't too one-sided or anything like that. Never, ever, ever did it feel anything close to as populated as Grobulus does. And on my second server, there was literally only one guild, my guild, that was even in Molten Core or Blackwing Lair for a number of months at the beginning of the server. There were just not that many people. And it did kind of highlight some of the issues that you run into when you have these smaller populations. Like, it's difficult to recruit. You can't always find people that are at the same part of the game that your crew is at. So I understand the incentive to maybe bump up the number of people so that we don't have as many people having those types of issues, but we are well above and beyond what those numbers were for sure.
I mean, the smallest server is definitely not above it, but I would say that even the 5th bottom server, 6th bottom server has 2,000 active max level characters. That's got to be close to what a lot of the vanilla servers had. I bet only a small handful of them ever really peaked past like 4,000 or 5,000.
Yeah, I would imagine that those were some of the larger ones, some of the the original servers that had large PvP communities and large beta playing communities as well attached to them.
Yeah, like Illidan or Kel'Thuzad or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing is for sure, until we hear more from Blizzard about this, we're going to be kind of keeping our ear to the ground and kind of seeing what is going on, because one thing is for sure, this is going to be ongoing. And like you mentioned before, with more people playing because of the extended house arrest that everybody is on, we're going to be seeing more people logging in and more people giving WoW Classic a second look, especially with all this content that has come in lately. Speaking of content that is Grobulus specific, we've got Okwaho here to talk about the Festival of Peace. All right, our next guest on the podcast is a member of Redwood Tribes, writer and editor of the Redwood Times, a captain of the Thunder Bluff Debate Society, and has an upcoming event in the Festival of Peace. Welcome to the show, Okwaho.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Okwaho, you are at this point legend on this show. We've heard so much about you and your involvement with the Azeroth RP Planning Committee. It is an honor to have you on the show and talk about some of these amazing events and things that you have going on. But first, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be talking on the show about the things that are coming up and about Grobulus. And just a big fan of your show and everything you've been doing as High Warlord. That's incredible. Maybe someday, 10 years from now, I might.
Yeah, what I would say to anybody out there, if you do happen to think that you want to take that High Warlord path, this might be the time to do it, actually, with all this lockdown going on. But enough about the PvP. Let's talk about this upcoming event, the Festival of Peace. This is coming up in May. It's a 2-day event. What's going on?
I kind of wanted to show the side of the Tauren that is about peace, because we've had some questions lately in our Thunder Bluff debate society about peace versus war and all that. And of course, Tauren are very warlike, and but at the same time, they want peace. So I thought, let's put together this peace festival. And at first, it was just going to be one day. And then all of a sudden, I woke up and said, hey, how about have a second day, and we'll kind of flip things around and show a different side of Thunder Bluff, kind of the underground back alleys, something with the peace pipe. And, what are they brewing down in that the cave under the Spirit Rise? So basically, you're going to have day one on May 1st, which is going to be about the authentic tribal experience, the Shoe Hollow marketing, crafting, a lowrider Kodo march. And the second day will be the underground that kind of flips out and does something completely different with Thunder Bluff.
That sounds absolutely incredible. One thing that struck me immediately about this was sort of the play with the Tauren's roleplay aspect within the game. This was kind of a factor for me when I made my character that's now my alchemist. I only ever leveled that character about halfway up, but I knew I wanted an alchemist, and I picked a Tauren for that very reason, to be my herbalist alchemist, because of that connection that is shown between the tribes, between their imagery, just even the way Mulgore looks is so authentically peaceful. It sounds like it's going to be an incredible location for this event.
Yeah, and we're going to be all over the place. And of course, Rumsey got his Kodo recently, a couple weeks ago. So I've actually asked him to lead the Lowrider Kodo March. I can't think of somebody that loves Kodo more, except maybe myself. So he's already accepted. He's honored to do so. But it's been kind of like that. I've asked a lot of folks to come in and do opening speeches and be part of the closing speech and final dance. and of course, like I said, there's going to be vendors. We could use some more vendors for both nights, actually. For anybody that's listening and wants to join us, just reach out to me.
Very cool. I'm sure there are people that are very interested to sell their wares in the name of peace. So, on to the second night. I'm definitely interested in that underground party vibe that we're talking about here. What kind of things might we expect on the second night in terms of, maybe the vending isn't necessarily going to be legal as it is on the first night?
I'm certainly thinking there'll be some other things being sold the second night, but you can still sell the good stuff, whatever. But we're gonna kind of do Kodo racing um, in the buff. Some people may feel nervous about being in the buff, but we're gonna do brews in the pools of vision, as I said, and gonna kind of mess around with that huge peace pipe that's in one of the tents. And then I have a very, very special guest that's going to help us do some lawn darts off of Spirit Rise. Um, it's something that we used to do on Emerald Dream. Is we would kind of throw a target down and jump off the bluffs and see who could get closest to the target. Uh, so we're going to have somebody that's encouraging people to take that risk.
Very cool. I absolutely cannot wait to participate in this one. This sounds like something that is right up my alley, and it might even tempt me to get a little bit of reputation so that I can get my own Kodo to ride at the event. This isn't the only part of the RP community that you've been a part of. You've been doing the Redwood Times now for over a year, and I gotta ask you, it's absolutely incredible. How did this get started?
Um, well, when I started role playing, I didn't really even have a character idea in mind or anything like that, and it was on Emerald Dream, and there, Redwood Tribe is almost 100% Tauren, and you could be high mountain Tauren. So I went ahead and went that direction. I figured that would help me with lore and some of the history that I would not know as well as somebody more experienced in role play. So I could kind of hide behind. Well, I've been on, over here on this island for so long, I don't know all this perfectly well. So one night around 3 a.m., my character Lokawas woke me up and said he wanted to edit a newspaper. And I tried to tell him to go back to sleep. And my character said, no, that's what I want to do. So we went for it. I got very lucky in that the chieftain of our current tribes, Ayashi, is my wife. She helped me set up the website and showed me kind of how to get started. And I just started writing. And the writing has also come from telling tales at Tall Tales and Epic Fables. We continued on that tradition from Earthspear Clan, and I was honored that Earthspear Clan allowed me to help host it here on Grobulus as well when we started the server here. And then when they kind of fell away, we went ahead and continued the tradition here as well for that. And that got me back into writing. So it's been great to write about the events that we go to. I'm still level 47. Everybody in the tribe has offered to, help me run through dungeons and boost me up. And other people, like in Hand of Lordaeron, like Black Plague and all of them, they've all offered as well. But there's just so much RP going on our server that I want to be at all these events so I can write about them as much as possible for everybody. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, let me say, if you don't mind, pass the message along to your wife that the site looks absolutely incredible. It has that air of role play professionalism that makes it a very enjoyable experience to read. And then on, the flip side of it, your willingness to go dig and tell the story is the other side of that makes it such an incredible piece of RP on our community. And it really was one of the standout things that I saw in the initial phase of Grobulus when there was so much stuff coming out about the server.
Well, thank you. I mean, there were, for a little bit there, we had 3 newspapers. And the difference here than on Emerald Dream is I can go to an event that's even on Alliance side on Emerald Dream and cover that as well. And I can't do that as easily here. I have activated a second account so that I can once in a while try and participate, because there are some good groups on Alliance side too, and I love to be able to cover as much as possible. But it's enjoyable to be at these events anyway, and to be role playing with all these really great role players on this server. We're really lucky here. Hand of Lordaeron has really opened my eyes to where the role playing possibilities are for Forsaken, and I think that's intriguing. And then in the tribes itself, just the trolls and the orcs, they bring so much more to what's going on, and it's just fun. It's fun to be around all these folks.
Absolutely. One of the other things that you had mentioned earlier was the Thunder Bluff Debate Society. Now, this one's been going on for a little while now, and you've said we've had some heated debates. For those who haven't been to any of the debates, what goes on at the Thunder Bluff Debate Society?
Well, we started off with one or two people on each side of the debate, and sometimes I've had to step in and debate, and maybe not on the side that I want, but that's how real debate happens. You don't always get to choose your pro or your con. Somebody has to take one side, and you have to argue it the best you can. And so some of our debates, we started off with what I thought was going to be kind of a lighthearted one, and set the stage that way. It was whether or not there should be safety railings on Thunder Bluff.
I remember that debate, by the way. We were intrigued by it, and I think Myth came to the conclusion that, yeah, he wants that railing there.
Oh, did he? Oh, my. I did a transcript of that one, and it's actually in the Horde RP Discord, in a channel there. Because and then we just had somebody do a demonstration, and he was an engineer, so I guess he had the cloak or something. So all of a sudden he just jumps off, and we're all like, what the? And that's the kind of surprise that all of a sudden these debates are now being known for, is you just don't know what's going to happen, and you don't know what people are going to say. And I think the most heated one was probably the cannibalism debate. Should Thrall outlaw cannibalism? And we even had some Forsaken and some trolls going, yeah, I don't participate in cannibalism. I don't agree with it. And that was kind of like, wait, what? I didn't see that coming, and I don't think many of us did.
Yeah, I think you're going to get a lot more of a uniform vote on cannibalism between the orcs and the Taurens, especially on that one. Maybe not so much the Forsaken and the Trolls, but I think that is sort of a microcosm for what real life debate is actually like, right? We have so many people that are a part of different political groups and things, but then when you really get down to somebody's actual views, you'll find that it's usually not uniformly completely on one side or based off of their exterior position, but rather it's a lot more nuanced, and there's more to it than that usually.
Yeah, and well, when we had an orc, actually, one of our new tribe members actually had come up, and he got there late to the debate, and the next thing you know, he spit at one of the speakers, and one of the other members of that group basically drew a knife and threatened the orc. We almost had bloodshed at a debate. Like, it was great.
Then you know that your platform has been effectively represented when someone's trying to kill you, for sure. So we've got the Redwood Tribe, the Redwood Times, we've got the Festival of Peace coming up, we've got the Thunder Bluff Debate Society. Is there anything else we can be expecting out of you on the RP side, Okwaho?
Well, not out of me necessarily. All of our Redwood Tribe members are encouraged to come up with events. We're actually ending a murder mystery. Pogo Pogo and Nibby are ending a murder mystery this week or next week. We've also just done a 2-night event, what we call Redwood Rescue, where we were looking for a missing druid, and we traveled to the village of the dancing trolls and actually found a Tauren head hanging from some rope over the dancing trolls. Also, Bran Harrock and Pogo Pogo, they do like Pathfinder type adventures, finding places to get to. We've gone to Mount Hyjal and things like that. These folks are very, very much the ones that create a lot of ideas. And sometimes I just go, yeah, okay, so what are we doing with that idea? And then they kind of push themselves. The other thing that's going to come up after Festival of Peace for us will be that our trolls, along with some of the other trolls, um, outriders and stuff like that, are coming up with a troll festival. So look for that sometime in June.
Well, especially with the social distancing slash lockdown looking to be for the foreseeable future, I'm sure we're going to be getting a lot of extra interest in some of these incredible events. And really what I thought, when from Grobcella on, we were experiencing this new era, and that virtual meetup and get together really has its place. And it's people like you, the Azeroth Planning Committee, and a lot of these various guilds that are committed to RP that are making these amazing events and bringing people together in a time when it feels harder and harder to do so. I gotta say, it's welcomed, and then some on my end, at least.
Well, obviously we're having fun, and Grobus is just a great server. And I know there's been a few people that have disrespected RP, and you're always going to get some. But for the most part, the community has been very encouraging. They've been very happy to have RP. They've said it's some of the best experiences they've ever had, because it really does bring a depth to this game that, well, like I said, I've been playing since vanilla. And role play is like a whole new game. It's worth playing. So,
yeah, when you take a look at what was going on at some of these events, how much fun people were having socializing and getting to know each other and the server, it reminds you of what multi-massive online role-playing games were supposed to be about in the first place, and why all of this splintering and getting people apart and instance and all of these things equaled up to us having a game that we wanted to play less than the original game when it was all said and done. So these events, I can't stress enough, so much fun to be had. And thank you once again, Okwaho, for all the work that you do for the planning of the role-playing events and all the assistance that you provide.
no problem. And again, we appreciate being able to get the word out. We appreciate all the support as well. And Redwood Tribes, we love our community. We love the roleplay community. We love Grobulus. We're part of Grobulus now, and we're here to stay.
Awesome. Well, thank you once again, Okwaho, for coming on the show. You are welcome back anytime you've got something that you would like to say about your events, or just want to come and have a little chat about World of Warcraft, because let's be real, who doesn't like talking some WoW?
I love it. I'll be back anytime you want me.
All right. Well, thank you once again, Okwaho, for joining us today.
All right. Have a great night.
All right, well, thank you, Okwaho, for the awesome interview, and I am very excited about the Festival of Peace. This one's coming up in just a couple of weeks, and we've had so much talk about social distancing out in the world. These virtual meetups are starting to become a lot more popular, and Grobcella was a great one. I'm hoping that the Festival of Peace can be also a great big meeting event for people to get together and socialize a little bit while not breaking social distancing rules.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see.
As all of the events are on Grob, always fun to see. By the way, this is not, so much an event, but it was just great time in WoW. The world bosses dropped, and we talked about this a little bit earlier in the podcast. The second day of world boss fighting was absolutely epic. Some just truly incredible battles between the Horde and Alliance, major lag. I would even go as far to say these trumped even the original Kha'Zix and Azergos fights. The Green Dragons are here and have pumped a lot of life into the world boss fighting community.
I participated in the first day. Well, we waited around the first day for them to not spawn, and then when they actually spawned for the first time, it was awesome. We tried and failed to get the hinterlands as Horde, and then had enough time to move over to Ashenvale and got Lethon down. And it was an epic battle.
Yeah, one of the great things about it, too, has been, I would say, a resurgence in faction pride. We've had, especially early on in the server, if you've ever been to a world boss, you know how salty they can get. You know how the competing coalitions will fight. We've all seen the shouting, woe top bad, the final boss this, da-da-da-da-da. I'm sure that we see the same thing on the Alliance side. I've heard about some of it. This was incredible to see because for the first time, I actually saw the Horde side coalitions working together while also competing for the world boss and ultimately saying, hey, we're going to give each other some shots, but we're going to make sure that the Horde gets some of these bosses. And it really helped because we were outnumbered, and it was cool to see that not only that the Wotop Coalition and the Dawnbreaker Coalition and the Horde Coalition were working together, but respecting each other and making sure that the Horde got some of that loot.
Yeah, it was nice to see. It was, it's what I've wanted to see for a long time. Because we're all the same faction. There's no reason for us to be fighting each other.
Well, I think it's taken a lot of time, and I think both factions have gone through this, right? When you're going for a world boss, there's effectively anybody who's not on your side is against you because of the way how grievable they are. And it's part of what makes these battles so great, right? I have amazing memories of a Kha'Zix battle that went on until 4 a.m. in vanilla because of how easy it is to just give yourself another shot at that boss. But at the same time, with everybody practically on the server all going for these bosses at the same time, if you wanted your faction to get it, if you wanted to not see the other side get it, you had to work together because there were at least 5 or 6 raids on each side, and there needed to be defenders, and there needed to be people fighting the boss, and there needed to be people waiting in the wings ready to fight the boss as well.
Yeah, when we actually killed Lethon as the group, we had 4 raids with the Horde Coalition, and the first raid got the tag, and then even though we were wiping, we had the second and third Horde raids come in and just continue the encounter even though they weren't getting loot, just to make sure that we were able to get it. And they all assisted. It was awesome.
Well, and it should also go that Wotop and Dawnbreakers, while, they had their shots at it, were more than willing to go up and get some PvP in and play defenders. And as a result, each side was willing to work with each other a little bit more harmoniously than I've ever seen the Horde work. And it was absolutely necessary because we were totally outnumbered. There were more Alliance there, at least it seemed that way for sure, but that cooperation between the coalitions is ultimately what helped the Horde get these world bosses, and I think it helped heal some of these wounds, and it maybe gave us that extra little bit of a nudging that everybody needed to have, because we've talked about this too. There are more Alliance guilds raiding on this server than Horde by quite a bit, and we just need a little bit of cooperation on our side if we're going to compete with that. And on the flip side, it's going, to mean that every single time if we want to compete, because there's going to be willing Alliance ready to compete, we're going to have to think one step ahead. One thing, though, that did change over the course of this world boss, and it definitely left a little bit of a mark on that, was the disbanding of a Grobulus legend in Hurricane, the guild.
It looks like their coalition is still very present.
Yeah,
because we
absolutely. And
fought against them.
we've seen these groups kind of split up into two separate guilds, and you're going to see a lot of the same players out there. But I definitely think there was a moment of sadness just kind of knowing that specific identity that Hurricane brought to the server, whether you loved him or hated him. And I think that that's exactly what we're alluding to, is that it worked both ways. I feel like a little bit of that is going to be missed.
Yeah, for sure. I do think there's there's definitely a bit of it that just isn't around anymore. But I mean, they're still here, right? Like, they just have a different name.
Yeah, and you hope that with the way the world bosses are going, the way this next generation is going, they're gonna pick up the pieces. There's gonna be new players that emerge with the identity. If you're interested in all the drama and all of that, you can go check out the Grob subreddit. You can read up all about it. But to me, I'm gonna always remember Hurricane is that guild that really captured that identity. When they came to your city, it felt like a hurricane. And like we confirmed on this show, that song Rock You Like a Hurricane was really felt in that identity. So I just wanted to give that one shout out to Hurricane. Huge piece of Grobulus, and you guys will be missed. And with that being said, let's just relive this little classic moment in Grobulus history.
Are you ready, baby? Here I am. Rock you like a hurricane.
Well, thank you, Kurthos, for that, and thank you, Illithil, for that awesome clip of Kurthos singing the Hurricane song. And once again, big salute to what really was one of my first impressions of World PvP on this server in Hurricane. Also, big, longtime Grob Guild server news. Shattered Company couldn't just get a Thunder Fury. They had to do it with a little bit of extra spice. The double Thunder Fury Blades Crossed screenshot. This happened like right at the beginning of the week, but go check this out if you haven't already seen it. 2 Thunder Furies at the same time with the Thunder Fury swords crossed happen here on Grobulus, and just another little taste of that love for the game that people show every single day on this server.
That's probably a rare screenshot that exists. Like, people are going to be able to link that in a period of time, and there aren't a whole lot of people probably in the world that can link a similar screenshot. So it is pretty cool.
Well, you got to think about how much needs to align in order for that to happen. You need to have 2 people that even have the ability to get a Thunder Fury, right? That's rare enough as it is. And then they have to have it at the same time and be in the same guild. The drops happen so far apart that happening isn't entirely likely, but the imagery of the screenshot is what is exactly as iconic about this game. And it was just cool to see. And again, it's that piece about this server that tipped it over the top when I was deciding a server. The fact that people want to do cool stuff like that on Grobulus. The all Druid kill, the all Dwarf Molten Core, double Thunder Fury kills. These little pieces of Grobulus love for the game are, what keep me coming back and loving this community in the server.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Also, speaking of Grobulus accomplishments, I don't have the Alliance side rank 14, so if anybody knows those for this week, let me know. But Alyosius and Mimic are this week's Horde side rank 14s, and I saw something very interesting while looking at Honor Spy. While you won't have any Horde side rank 14s next week, we are going to be in for something truly fascinating the following week, if this does in fact happen this way. We're looking at potentially 6 rank 14s happening in the same week due to what's happening with the stacking on our server. And I just got to say, that's absolutely incredible. It's cool to see that we're now at this era in the PvP system where we're seeing multiples hit it per week, and sometimes almost entire PvP groups now are getting it at the same time. So congratulations to everybody who, got it this week, but it'll be one of them getting it in a couple of weeks too.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you would never have imagined that 3 months ago. But we're now at this new era where there's a lot more cooperation. And, in my opinion, personally, they're playing the PvP system correct in that you've got to cooperate to get the best results.
Yeah, I would have thought no more than 3 people at a time would have been a cap.
Well, the Alliance, who's been capping earlier, has had a little bit more success. And, they've had it, from a little bit of a different standpoint, right? They were so organized that they got people in and out earlier. And now it's a little bit more broken up. Whereas we're really starting to see the effects of people that have had multiple months of stacking and being a part of that system. So this is cool to see. And like I said, more waves of rank 14s on your faction is always a cool accomplishment. Anything else going on the server of Grobulus that you caught this week, Myth?
Not really. Again, it's been such a whirlwind with ZG coming out. That I don't know. I've done ZG like 5 times already.
Yeah, between my characters that I've gotten so much ZG in already, and then in the time that I haven't been raiding it, I've been farming up the bijous with the crocs. So this has been a jam-packed week full of Zul'Gurub. Hopefully you all got a chance to experience that, but if you haven't yet, don't worry, it's not going anywhere. It is here to stay in WoW Classic. All right, well, with that being said, I think that's all we've got this week. Please like and subscribe on SoundCloud, on YouTube. Leave us a comment on the subreddit, and if there's anything you want to talk about on this show, hit us up in game because we definitely want to hear about it. All right, well, thank you once again for listening. We'll catch you all next week.